Welcome to another episode of Pels in the Blender. It's your boy A. Davis coming to y'all with another video. Getting ready to go ahead and jump into some things that we talking about in the Pels universe. Um, I'm not gonna go ahead and hesitate or waste any time. Go ahead and jump right into it. As you can see in the title, what I want to talk about today is Zion Williamson, a top 5 player in the Western Conference, not in the entire NBA. That would be a completely different conversation, in my opinion. But specifically in the Western Conference, is Zion a top 5 player? So the reason I even come to ask myself this question is, as we get ready to go into the season, the franchise is they're putting their money up this season, right? Everything is based on this season, and how the results from this season could kind of determine the future of the organization. Are we going to lean into Trey Murphy as the best player? Is Trey Murphy possibly getting traded? Is Zion getting traded? Is Jeremiah Fears and Derek Queen, do they have to step in immediately and become the face of the organization? All of that rests upon how does Zion Williamson perform. Now, when you think about what the franchise player is and the expectations for your franchise player, you're competing amongst all of the other top players. Like, yes, your team is competing, but specifically your team typically goes as far as your best player can carry it. So I want to look at our best player, which is it's clear that Zion is our best player versus other teams' best player, and let's see where they stack up. If we should have these particular expectations of Zion Williamson. So the reason we even come to that is typically, if you are one of the top players in the conference, one of the top players in the league, then your team more than likely will be in the playoffs. Like, yes, you need to have some other, you need to have some help. You need to have, good coaching, and you need to have some luck with being healthy, and you need some things to break your way. But really what it boils down to is, how good is your best player? When LeBron James was the best player in the East, they dominated the East. You know what I mean? They were a top team, a perennial playoff team. When Steph Curry has been the best player in the West, his team dominated the West. Same with all of the other best players. So we're going to go through and look at, first off, Zion specifically, and this isn't the Zion film review. That'll be coming at some point down the line, but more so just kind of taking a look at Zion last season and some of Zion's most productive seasons, so we could really get an idea of how good Zion performed, or and see kind of where he stacks up. So last season, Zion only played 30 games, obviously missed a ton of time. The team was terrible, and that pretty much, you know what I mean, it kind of derailed the season. He was only playing 28 minutes a game. And it was you saw kind of like what they would do with the burst minutes. You know what I mean? You see him for the first 6 minutes, he sub out at 6 minutes exactly. Anytime they got close to the 30-minute again, like 28 minutes, 27 minutes, anytime they got close to the 30-minute mark when he came back from injury, like, those days were over. So he had to be really efficient and really effective with a bad team, with no people out there, and you know what I mean, with not really much to play for. The season was pretty much over. So last year he averaged 24.6 points, 7.2 rebounds, 5.3 assists on 56% shooting, and he did that in 28 minutes a game. Now, that's pretty impressive if you ask me. So in comparison, Shea led the league in points at 32 points per game. Obviously, they were the number one team. They were the number one team in the NBA, not just in the West. They were the number one team all year last year. But again, normally the top players average about 35 to 36 minutes a game. Devin Booker averaged 37 minutes a game. So Zion playing 28 minutes a game realistically is unacceptable for a franchise player. But for him to have stats, and that guy can, stuff the stat sheet. But for Zion to have numbers, comparable to that in only 28 minutes a game is pretty impressive. But again, real quick, I'm gonna look at Shea, and the reason I'm using Shea right now is because obviously that's the league MVP. They were the number one team. They just won the championship. So obviously, we just go ahead and like knock this part off the list right now. You can't be better than Shea already. So you immediately start this conversation at least number 2. And we'll continue to go through the list a little bit. But Shea averaged 32.7 points, 5 rebounds, and 6.4 assists. Played 76 games and averaged 34 minutes a game. So obviously there's a gap between Shea's level of production and Zion's level of production. And the reason I use those two is because that's Shea, and Shea was the MVP this year, and it wasn't even a runaway that Shea won the MVP. It was kind of a close race, you know what I mean, between him and Joker, but that goes to show what kind of numbers and production that you need to have to be considered one of the top players in the Western Conference. You need to be at least 33 minutes a game, I would imagine, at minimum 33 minutes a game. I would imagine you need to play. Obviously, you need to be one of those first team All NBA guys, which is you need the 65 games played mark to hit that number. Also, your team needs to you could be a top player at the same time, but I personally can't consider you a top player in any conference if you're just consistently losing. Like even as a player as good as Giannis, for example, and we know Giannis is arguably the best player in the Eastern Conference, but if they were a 20 win team, it's not that you wouldn't say that Giannis isn't a great player, but you would say stuff like, it has no impact on the game. Is not necessarily empty stats, but like it can't contribute to winning at all for you to be that bad of a team. So your production has to equal wins for the team for me, because if you're one of the best players, then more than likely you're gonna win majority of those games. So that's the first way I'm judging how, I guess, where Zion should fall, like where exactly Zion should fall in this type of conversation. So we can't have him number 1 with the MVP. Obviously, I just spoke on how close the MVP race was, and Joker was putting up crazy numbers last season. Joker averaged on 36 minutes a game, he averaged 29.6, so 30 points a game, 10.2 assists, 12.7. Dude averaged the triple-double, man. Dude averaged the triple-double on 36 minutes a game. So, and he played 79 games. I'm sorry, he played 70 games. So there's a clear area that, like a clear like meter or metric or whatever you want to call it, like that you have to reach to be considered one of these top players in the Western Conference. The 2 top dogs in the West are Shea, right now at least, are Shea and Joker, and they're averaging, Shea's averaging 32 plus the second year, over 30. Joker averaging damn near triple double. You know what I mean? So as of right now, you can't, and those teams are constantly successful in winning games and in the playoffs. You're not talking about play-in. There's no chance for those teams to be in the play-in. So with that being said, that is where I'm starting my metric and like what I'm judging, like how good you are, like your impact on the game, your level of dominance, your highest ceiling, like how high is your ceiling when you're rolling, also your high, like how high is your floor, like even when you're not having a really when you're not your best self, you still have to be good enough to be better than most other players or most, and have your team better than most other teams. Do you play on both sides of the ball? And if you're not, you ain't got to be Lou Dort necessarily or Herb Jones on defense, but you can be a defensive liability. That matters to me. Do you impact the game in multiple ways? So not just impact on the game, like for example, Jalen Brunson is a scoring machine, right? And but he kind of dominates the ball. That's really one of the only ways that he kind of affects the game. Like, can you be like, what is your gravity like? Can you draw to all the time? Can you handle getting the paint? Can you dominate inside? Can you get others involved? Like, there's a couple things that I look at that as far as like how I'm judging the players. And also the last thing, do you do more with less? Obviously, and not saying that the Pelicans haven't had a extremely talented team over the years, but to say like top to bottom, we've had one of the best rosters, I don't necessarily think that that's true as well. And again, that'll be the case coming into the season right now. Yes, there's some talent, but there's a lot of other talented teams in the Western Conference, right? So those players, like that, like there's players in the Western Conference that no matter who's out there, you know what I mean, they steady the ship. They're consistent winning, like consistent winners. And once they reach their peaks, you know what I mean, they're going to, you can almost always count those types of players in the playoff race, at least. And most likely those players are going to make the playoffs. So going down the Western Conference, let's see, where will we have Zion ranking? And so we already talked about Shea. As of right now, I don't think Shea is a better player than Joker. But when you win the championship and you win the MVP, you the top dog. So the top dog in the West is Shea, right? Number two is Joker. And like, obviously multiple time MVP, averaged a triple double, could have won MVP again this season. His team solid, like clearly in the playoff race. They're like not even concerned with being a play-in team and stuff like that, like throughout majority of the season. So after those two, who do we have? And that's kind of where it gets a little tricky. So for me, it's between, it's not even between. I will not disregard what Luka Doncic has done over his career and over the last two seasons. So not just last season, but the season previous to that, Luka clearly was in the MVP race, went to the finals, carried that team. And again, they had talent. Yes, they had Kyrie and Lively in Washington, but that team was put on Luka Doncic's back, and you saw him perform throughout the season, in the playoffs, just be completely dominant, averaging 30 points a game, like 11 assists during the season. Like Luka averaged almost a triple double, not last year, but the year before. Insane season. Last year he got injured early, came back, and if you look at when Luka got back, where he was, where the Lakers were in the season, they were kind of teetering. You know what I mean? Like they like JJ Redick was a new coach. They were kind of floundering around a little bit. They had started to find some rhythm, but then Luka gets there and they go from being like fighting for the play-in 7-8 seed, sometimes 9 seed. They end up finishing the season the third seed in the NBA. And that's largely due to Luka, because if you remember, LeBron the last couple weeks of the season got injured, took some time off and stuff like that. And it's not to say that LeBron doesn't contribute or whatever, but Luka Doncic to me is the third best player in the Western Conference. And when he's rolling and he's right, you could argue he puts up a case with the other two players, Joker and SGA, for being the best player in the West as well. So After that is kind of where it gets a little tricky for me. Because you have reputation, right? Like Steph Curry has reputation. Kevin Durant has not just reputation and legacy. Like those players are still great players, absolutely great players. Can't deny it, right? But as they're getting older, you see with Steph Curry. Steph Curry cannot carry a team, you know, over the course of a season. He just can't do it. Like he's been wearing down the Warriors. They're a playing team. They missed the playoffs last year, not last year, the year before as well. Similarly with Kevin Durant. When Kevin Durant plays, obviously he's still a great player, can get numbers and stuff like that, impacts the game, plays both ways, but he's just an older player, and his level of impact on the game isn't what it was when he was in his prime. And that's not to say he's not still a great player, but personally, I can't have those two in my top 5 in the Western Conference when if even if they play significantly throughout the season, if they're your best player, you still need much more around them to be able to get through the season. That's even if they're healthy. And that's just kind of how I see it. So I don't have them, and also they deal with some injury risk as well. Like, and again, they're older players, so they get a little, they get benefit of the doubt. Excuse me, they're very accomplished as well, but I can't have them personally in the top 5. Now, if you want to talk about recent, like the recent reputation, you got to consider Anthony Edwards, right? And young dog, like just constantly on the rise. The last 2 seasons been the Western Conference Finals. 2 years ago, Karl Anthony Towns was his second best player. They take Cat away, pause, and add Julius Randle as, I don't know if you consider Julius Randle his second best player. I guess you can, because Rudy Gobert, while he's great defensively, there's some limitations that you have there with Rudy. So I guess it depends on how you weigh offense versus defense and team impact about who technically their second player would be, but there's no question who the best player on that team is. And he guards, picks you up, full attitude, demeanor, highlight package, shoot the three, complete game. I think it's pretty safe to put Anthony Edwards as the 4th best player in the Western Conference. I mean, 2 years ago, you could make the argument because he beat Joker in the playoff series. But he went up against Shea, lost, went up against Luka, lost. So you kind of gotta weigh it. And Joker's also a champion and MVP. But there's no shame in having Anthony Edwards as the 4th best player in the Western Conference. Now, this is where it really starts to get tricky. So I don't have, and I know it's crazy to say, but I don't have Steph Curry currently, Kevin Durant currently as better players than Zion Williamson. I'm sorry. Like, when Zion is on the floor, healthy and playing, he's one of the best. Like, he's arguably top 10 player in the league, in my opinion. And we could argue that, you know what I mean? You could argue it, but you've seen high levels of Zion when high level of play from Zion when he's right and rolling. So you have the 4. So after that, you got to consider LeBron, but LeBron obviously has the same issues that, in my opinion, the same issues that Steph and Kevin Durant have. So I can't put LeBron necessarily as a top 5 player in the West, because if LeBron was your best player, he can't carry a team. You'll be a playing team, or you may not make the playoffs either. So then we have Kawhi, and Kawhi is the one to me that's really, really tough, because Kawhi and Zion are kind of in the same category in a sense. Because Kawhi has had health issues, but more recently Kawhi has also played. Like Kawhi had the knee injury or whatever and sat out. But Kawhi, like my man Miles always said, has more recently been healthier than Zion. And when he is healthy, man, Kawhi performs at an elite level. Like defensively, he performs. He's just so consistent, and that's where like impact of the game. And Kawhi has a high floor. You know what I mean? Like his ceiling is high, but like throughout the regular season, like Kawhi is just consistently elite, like consistently elite. And I think I can't like I'm not giving it based off of his accomplishments, before, as like his defensive awards and championships and finals MVPs. I don't care about any of that personally. This is not an accolades based ranking. It is right now where you are, who is the better player. And I think right now, like to round out that top five, like I can't just put Zion above Kawhi Leonard, because Kawhi is just so consistent and so elite in that even off the injury, comes back from injuries, and like they may low manage him a little bit, but Kawhi is going to be there, and Kawhi is going to show up, and Kawhi is going to produce. So I can't really have Zion in the top five when I just laid out the case for the five players that I have above him. So for me, I got Zion when rolling, as when healthy right now, the sixth best player in the Western Conference. And that's including him not shooting the three. That's including his handle is solid, but you know what I mean? It's not like he's some elite ball handler or anything like that. Pause. But for me, I have Zion when he's rolling as the sixth best player in the West. You see it every time the Zion is healthy. 2 years ago, not 2 years ago, I'm sorry. This was in 2023, the 22-23 season, when Zion was rolling the first half of the season. Those dudes was the number one seed. That guy was looking like an MVP candidate, and he still wasn't in shape. Insane. You saw this year in the 28 minutes a game when Zion was on the floor, he was as dominant of a player. Like he was as dominant of a player that was playing at the time. Like if we could get Zion to play 33, 34 minutes a game, like again, like my projected stats for Zion this year is to be somewhere around 28, 29, 8 and 8. Like that's in line with those top five in the West kind of players, kind of numbers. Play 65 games, 33 to 35 minutes a game, and you solidify yourself as one of the top players in the Western Conference. You lock down a top six playoff seed, and realistically, if I have you ranked number six, that's where you should fall. And I know there's other players that people want to maybe discuss. Anthony Davis, Anthony Davis is a great player, but I just personally think that Zion Williamson is just a better player than Anthony Davis. Like, not that AD isn't great. Devin Booker's a great player. A lot of people want to talk about Wemby. I personally don't think Wemby is there yet to even be put in the conversation with those guys. James Harden is another one still out there playing elite basketball. If we did a point guard ranking, I probably would have James Harden as maybe the top point guard in the Western Conference. But Ja Morant is still right there. And you know what? You have a strong case that you can make that Ja, would deserve that spot over Zion based off both of their resumes. But if you just watch the games, man, Zion is just more dominant of a player, more impactful of a player. He just has to stay on the court. It's literally that simple. And you can't come in you have to be in shape to be your best self. But you see Zion towards when the again, I hate to refer to the 49 win season, but the 49 win season when Brandon went down and Zion came back those last games, and they were running off, with Zion, Trey, Herb, CJ, and they were running it at the end of the season. You saw Zion outperforming majority. Like, they played the Clippers. Kawhi is on the court, Harden on the court. Zion's the best player on the floor. Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, Zion's the best player on the floor. They had to play the Spurs. Like, again, they had the they had to slip up when Zion, hurt his thumb, but you see Zion with the game winner in San Antonio over the Spurs to get that win. In the play-in game, Anthony Davis and LeBron James, like, Zion, the best player on the floor. Like, I know they got some players for the Rockets teams. People might want to mention Sengun. I guess you could say Sengun might be the best player on that team. I'm not sure how you rank it with him and Kevin Durant, but I'm taking Zion over both of those guys. So as of right now, like, realistically, when you line it up in the West, it wouldn't be that far-fetched for me, at least, to say that, like, in order, top to bottom, Shea, Joker, Luka, and Kawhi. That's your top 5 players in the Western Conference. And for me, I got Zion number 6 right after that. This season's gonna be a big season for him. I think the team is more equipped for him to be productive. He just has to show up and do his part. The coaching makes a difference, but man, when you a great player, you can be great outside of like coaching don't always impact great players, right? Great players are going to be great regardless. So that's kind of where I want to end it right now, man. Tell me what y'all think. Like, share, subscribe, leave a comment. This one is a little different. I kind of, waited to the end to kind of get into like Zion and why I think he's one of the top players in the Western Conference. But if you look at the level of production when Zion is healthy, like I said, like in 28 minutes a game, this guy's one of the most dominant players that you'll see. When he's healthy, like, he has it factor. He plays on both ends of the floor. Like, he can rim defend. He just can dominate a game. And when he's rolling, there's literally nothing that most players can do. Like, there's nothing that anybody can do to stop that guy. You've seen him go up against some of the best teams in the Western Conference and beat those teams. So again, I got Zion number 6 in the West, but I'm willing to open that up for discussion and see, if y'all may have some people higher than that. You may have them a little lower, but that's going to be all for the day, man. Appreciate y'all for tuning in. Like, share. Again, I'm hit it again. Like, share, subscribe. It's been a lot of love with people on the channel. Got some episodes with a couple guests coming up. That's going to be nice, man. Stay tuned for what we got going on with Pels in the Blender. It's your boy, A. Davis. I'm out.